Now we're on to our next film. It's a second feature. This is a film by Céline Sciamma. Céline Sciamma, you might know her as the writer-director of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, a movie that was critically acclaimed upon its release. I absolutely love that film. Bruce loves that film. Eric, I apologize, I forget what your thoughts of Portrait of a Lady on Fire when you saw it.
I have not seen it, but I literally just picked it up on Criterion, so I will be checking that out very soon.
Wait, you picked it up on a Criterion flash sale? Is that what happened, or did you go to Entertain Mart? How did you?
Went to Entertain Mart. I think it was like $20, $15. It was really cheap. Just sitting there, and I was like, I should fucking watch this. And then I watched Petite Maman, and I'm like, I'm so glad I picked it up.
Okay, so wait. Oh, you picked it up before watching Petite Maman.
I picked it up and then
on
watched Petite Maman last night, and then I will watch Portrait of the Lady on Fire I'll watch it this week for sure.
Okay.
Might even put it on after we get done here.
Okay. Well, Petite Maman, it's directed by the aforementioned Céline Sciamma.
Tu viens m'aider? T'avais jamais vu avant. Je me suis fait une copine, je crois. Maman, tu la faisais où ta cabane?
Dans les bois, juste derrière.
J'ai un secret. Enfin, c'est pas comme le mien. C'est le tien aussi. Jamais de quand vous étiez enfant. C'est pas forcément des choses qu'on cherche à cacher, les secrets. C'est juste qu'on a personne à qui les dire. Je vous écoute.
And it centers on Nellie. She's an 8-year-old girl, and she is suffering the loss of her grandmother. She's very close to her grandmother. The movie starts with her I believe in a nursing home where you see her say goodbye to several elderly people. You're assuming it's a nursing home, and towards the end, the last door, you realize you see Nellie. If I recall, she's talking to her mother. They're getting ready to go and leave the nursing home because their grandmother has passed away. And what happens is Nellie and her mother, they go back to the grandmother's home. The premise of the movie of Petite Maman is the mother and her husband, they have to clear out all of the belongings of the grandmother and clear the house, because who knows, maybe they'll put it up for sale. The bottom line is they're taking all of the grandmother's material items away from the house within a span of 2 or 3 days. Within the span of several days, Nellie discovers another girl out in the woods. The home of the grandmother is situated right smack dab in the middle of nature. It's a wooded home, and it's really beautiful. It's just when you think of a backyard, my backyard over here is very small. It's amazing to see how beautiful the grandmother's backyard is, because the backyard is actually a complete just woodland forest, and it looks gorgeous on the screen. I feel really bad that I watched this on my iPad. This is worth, I guess, watching on the big screen on a visual sense. But when she meets a girl, Nellie meets this girl, and it's kind of cool because Nellie is suffering from the loss, and she befriends a girl, and they get to hang out, and they get to build. She sees a girl actually trying to build a hut in the middle of this area, and it's about their friendship and building that hut and bonding together at a time of grief. What's interesting is visually I was really immersed in this, but I was expecting so much with how much I absolutely love Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It's probably one of my all-time, it might be a top 20 film for me, just based on its subject matter. This movie is 72 minutes, has the same DP, Claire Mathon, as Portrait of a Lady on Fire, 72 minutes. I was expecting to be set afire with Petite Maman, but I was a little bit indifferent and bored by this film. Just did not work for me. I liked the woods, but just didn't click. Bruce, did you feel the same way? Was this a kind of a letdown for you, Petite Maman?
No, I really like it a lot. it's different, and I appreciate that. I like it when a director isn't always in the same lane. Where one movie is this kind of passionate story of longing and not being able to get something, or maybe not needing to get something. There's a whole bunch of stuff. We won't talk about that movie, but whereas this movie is not that, because it's not supposed to be that. I really like this movie a lot. I think it's to me, it's one of those movies that on paper looks like, oh, it's just a little girl kind of walking around talking to people. And it is kind of that, but it isn't kind of that. I think there's a lot more going on here. I was going to say at the beginning, I was going to say, hey, if you have a script that involves cleaning out a house of a loved one who's recently passed, I would say go for it, because I've seen a couple great ones. In my opinion, this is one. And, we watched Driveways a couple years ago. That's also a great one with a similar kicking off point. And there's some things that happen in this movie that I did not expect. And when it started to unfold what was happening in this movie, I got really interested. And there was an element of mystery and kind of puzzleness going on there that made me think about it in kind of two dimensions, which I quite appreciated that. But I also appreciated that it kept its grounded, very, very personal tone. And also there's just some beautiful small moments in this movie, which is also not too long. There's a moment with her father. There's several moments with her father that I think are just fantastic. And there's another moment, I'm going to say, on a lake that has a very unusual thing in the middle of the lake, which really surprised me, and I loved that moment as well. Anyway, I'd like to hear what Eric thinks. I'm pretty high on this movie.
Oh my goodness, pretty high. Okay, wow. Petite Maman. Where do you land, Eric, as far as indifferent to this movie, or were you pretty high on Petite Maman?
So I hadn't seen Portrait of a Lady on Fire, so I didn't know what to expect. And then the first 15 minutes went by, and I was like, "Oh God, it's going to be one of these, isn't it?" And then the little girl was she was pretty charming. I liked her. I liked all the actors in this, but I wasn't quite sure where it was going. And then when it got to the point, I guess, of what it is, when the girl meets the other girl, and both played by sisters, and this is their first and only IMDb credit, much like Pim Zam, and they both killed it, much like Pim Zam. So, if we're gonna do juice, that Virginia Newcomb Award is, people are at their
it's
throats.
filling up. Yeah,
but they were fantastic in this, and when it got to the point of what the movie was about, and if you want, you can look it up online. We'll talk spoilers once the movie's out, but this movie, I cannot stop thinking about it. And this movie is just fantastic. And I had an idea of where this movie was going, and I'm like, we need to see this happen at the end. This has to happen at the end. And then the end comes, and it was a little different than what I thought it was going to be, and it was better than what I thought it was going to be. I'm like, oh yeah, oh yes, I love this movie so much. I love this movie so much. I told my sister about it. I told Tammy and Kay at work about it. I just want to tell everybody about this. This is a movie that I think some people will watch it, go, yeah, it's fine, and other people, it's going to hit you in a certain way. And I think if you have kids, it's going to hit you like really deep, without getting into why. This is a sweet movie, though. This is not like there's sad things that happen in it. This is not a bummer at all, So if you're worried about, usually you say if you have kids, you're going to feel a certain way. Usually that means, and then the kid dies of cancer horribly over, it's nothing like that. It's just a really sweet movie, and it moved me emotionally quite a bit.
Wow. 72 minutes. Do both of you agree that maybe it's a rewatchable? I mean, you can watch it more than once?
Oh, yeah, especially the beginning. We'll talk about that in spoilers. I don't want to talk about it here, but you definitely want to rewatch it again.
Yeah. Well, so both you guys are very, very. So Bruce, it's a high recommend for you, Petite Maman?
Yeah, I'd say I'm 5 stars on this movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with this movie. I think it's like the movie equivalent of a poem that works for you, and for me it does. And I can imagine people just putting this on time and time again, even while they're just doing other things, because it's like you're sitting with people that you want to sit with. So I love it.
That's amazing. I can't believe what. And Eric, are you on Bruce's?
Yes, I would have been probably 4.5 because I didn't like that first 15 minutes, but I went back and rewatched the first 15 minutes, and it works so much better once you figure out what's going on.
Wow, I have no idea why. Maybe I just completely missed the boat or on Petite Maman because I was completely not even moved by 1 second of it. Maybe I'm really just a sociopath who lied to Bruce and Eric the last 5, 10 minutes, and this is one of my all-time favorite movies of all time. But period.
Yes.
This is a 5-star film for me, Petite Maman. One of the reasons why, yeah, this is just an emotional film. So, yeah, very, yeah. I don't even. Whoa, yeah. I'm gonna cut this out.
No, you're not.
I think I know. I think I know what you're thinking, and I feel that.
1 second, let me get a drink of water first.
All right.
So without giving too much away, I cut this like section out because I was really emotional. So I was probably listeners. I was tearing up and I cried a little bit. We're back here, and I'm gonna actually try to compose myself. The reason why Petite Maman worked for me, and Eric was talking about, we're not gonna give too much away. You can actually watch the trailer and you can actually listen to the reviews. The reviews will, a lot of reviews will, they're gonna spoil it for you, and that there's no reason for you to feel like it's going to be, if you know this, the spoiler, it's going to wreck your cinematic experience. The reason why me and Bruce and, all three of us, me, Bruce, and Eric, decided not to do it, we didn't even talk about this whole spoiler thing. We just went on with the review. I think we're in accord that saying some of the most obvious plot points here we want you as a listener or viewer to actually experience everything. We want you to discover, if you know there's going to be a fork in the road, well, why don't you just drive yourself and get to that fork? We don't have to tell you about the fork. It doesn't mean you're not going to enjoy the fork once you get there because we told you, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe there might be a chance that per Bruce's rating has a 5-star rating, and then he goes above and beyond the Call of Duty where it's a 5-star classic. Who knows? Maybe that'll make you see Petite Maman without us spoiling. You might see it even higher than a classic, right on that level. The reason why I think this movie works, it's a universal story of loss. And what would it be like if you could actually connect to different people? And wow, this one really wrecked me. So yeah, okay, so before we get to the recommendations, 5 years ago I lost my father, and I'd never thought about it, and it's one of those things where this will wreck you. This movie will wreck you in a good way, and I thoroughly recommend this movie. I apologize for my histrionics, but this is a very human movie, and I think it'll hit people in many different.
I love you, Greg. I want to give you all the hugs right now.
But do you guys agree that
we have proven,
dude, that thing you're feeling right now, I felt that many times in this movie, and I think that's why this is so special.
And do we all agree? I mean, I guess Eric hasn't seen Portrait of a Lady, which is much more about love and types of love and how you do or don't get the love you want or need in your life. But this director's working on a different level right now. I've only seen 2 movies by her, but at least on personal films, like really tapping into what it means to experience humanity, she's really got something special.
Okay, and also what's also special, I'm now composed myself just on a cinematic level. Petite Maman, for most of the movie, not going to spoil it for you, most of the movie, the music in Petite Maman is the music of the rustling of the leaves, the sound of the footsteps, a door closing, a door opening, just the wind rustling, the crunch of the branches, all of these things that you find in exploring as a child. It's also it's one of these movies where I just can't wait till it's a movie for all ages. So if you're a kid who can read and you're okay with subtitles, you will start understanding it, because there's so many things that the kids go through as far as emotions. And then if you're I think this is just do you guys agree it's kind of a universal movie that it depends on where you are in your, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because I think there's some people, they'll be in a certain point in their life and it's just going to be a boring drama to them. There's other people, especially those with kids or very close family, it's going to hit on a different level. And I think maybe like the older or depending on what relationships you have with your family, that's pretty much the gauge on where I think this might hit you.
Yeah.
I could see it hitting for some kids too, though.
Yeah.
Depending on how their lives are going. I could see it hitting for kids. And the one thing I want to kind of accentuate, we all were hit emotionally by this movie, I think, to varying degrees for whatever reasons on our own personal lives. But I want to say that I think that the movie isn't like a bummer. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the way this movie comes across. There's sweet, there's humor in here. There's just wonderful little moments that are just, they're not heavy, but it's getting at some real stuff, and it's doing it in a really delicate and a really intricate way that I think is what makes it special. And it's someone said being personal, and they're putting that personal on film and letting us see it and letting us adapt it to our own lives. So,
and I also want to actually do a disclaimer regarding my just being emotional and us being emotional as well, Eric. We're both talking about how it hit us different ways. Let us be clear. This is a fine work of filmmaking. So when someone breaks down, you're thinking, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about this, and you get emotional, and it's a palliative. It's like a potion, and then you forget about the story later on because it's supposed to manipulate your emotions for that moment. No, this is Petite Maman. It's a really finely tuned movie that is not saccharine. It doesn't go for these really big emotions. You're talking about it's delicate, it's intricate. It's a really well woven puzzle of a film that I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect film. Excuse the emotion that I went through. That's part of the movie, but I think the most important thing.
Don't excuse that, Greg. That's what these movies are supposed to do. You're supposed to watch them. It's supposed to elicit that. If art doesn't do that, then what's the point?
True, very, very true. And I just want us to really. I just want to focus on how much of a work of art this. I also never thought. I can't wait till you see Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Eric Holmes. I had no idea that a 72-minute film about an 8-year-old girl wandering in the friggin' forest would beat Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I mean, Bruce, I know probably your Portrait's right up there with you, but it's hard to. I can honestly say
they're different. Like I said at the very beginning. That's what I said at the very beginning. I appreciate that they're just different, and that she's able to operate on both those levels. And I'll be really, really, really curious to see how Eric responds to Portrait of a Lady, because now he might be built up too high. But I know that's not, but I mean, that's not his cup of tea. We know that, right? Like period piece, romantic dramas. I don't think that's Eric's thing. So if it works for him, that's going to be a pretty big, I think at minimum, he's going to like it, but I'll be really interested to see if it actually.
Well, also, I saw this first, and this director, she's already on my cool list. So I'm like, if the first 3 hours is boring as hell, I'm like, well, you did Petite Maman, and I'll give you as much latitude as you need until the credits roll.
We'll see. That's great.
I will say this though. Petite Maman was not a film that I thought Eric Holmes would flip for, but obviously I'm underrating not just Eric Holmes, but I'm underrating Céline Sciamma, what she was able to do. Right, Eric? She just kind of flipped your expectations. You came to a fork in the road.
What she did was she got into the characters, and you understood where the characters were, and you understood, like, it does great character work when a character says a word to them and they react in a certain way. You're like, I knew they would react that way because they did the work. It was a little over an hour long, and they didn't waste a lot of time. It seemed like they did. The first 15 minutes seemed like it did. Going back on it, and like, nope, you need all that stuff there. It's kind of like a Ghost Story. That beginning of Ghost Story is tough to get through, but then once you get through the whole movie and you go back and watch that beginning, it's like, nope, it needs to be there. It sucks the first time through, but once you get to the end and you go back to it, it's like everything needs to be exactly where it is.
And in danger of making this a long episode, which we already are doing.
We'll just, it's okay. We'll go past it.
I was going to say, the thing that's really cool about what you said about Ghost Story, once you've seen it, you go back and watch the beginning again, and you go like, oh yeah, I need that too. And then in my brain, I don't know about your brain, for my brain, a Ghost Story is a loop now. It doesn't have a beginning or end. It's actually a loop. I think this movie could also be a loop. I can imagine it being a loop. And I think that is a sign of really good writing and directing, because obviously they're setting things in motion for you don't know you need. But also it kind of makes it universal in a weird way, if that makes sense. It's like you could just have it on, I think. It's weird. I feel like you could.
Should we just turn this into the spoiler and just cut this whole section out and then I mean, we're kind of almost there anyway.
You know what we'll do? We're gonna wrap up this episode, and listeners, you're actually seeing the inside baseball stuff. We're gonna wrap this episode. I'll send you guys a new Zoom link, and then we'll go on from there.
All right.
So that is Petite Maman. 5 stars from me, 5 stars from Eric, 5 stars with Bruce. And yeah, it's in theaters April 22nd. 5 stars plus a crying Asian. That's my rating on me. Yeah. So I hope that doesn't dissuade you. Listen to what Bruce and Eric have to say about Petite Maman. This is my big regret for this movie is I did not see this last year. To be honest, I had it in my box set of my neon film box, and I was thinking, okay, well, I think I'll get to it when I get to it. This would have been my number 1 last year, and I feel horrible by not actually putting this on top of Drive My Car and Power the Dog. So my bad on this. Definitely see this movie no matter what. Eric, Bruce, can you say one more thing to our listeners? What should they just completely drive? You drove out to see Everything Everywhere all at once, right? Is this worth a drive to see, Bruce?
I would say if it affected us like this on whatever small screen we watched it on with whatever interruptions we had, you should definitely see it in a theater. I can imagine in a theater you'd be a mess, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I suggested my sister watch this with May, and I also suggested she invite Chris over to watch it with her, May, and Chris's daughter Carly. Like this is good. You talk about family movies. Usually people talk about family movies. They're talking about dumb cartoons. And, you know, there's some good ones in there. This is a family movie. This is a movie you watch with your family.
Yeah, very, very. And Eric's going to be the puppet master watching like, I saw Greg and Bruce get emotional. Now I'm going to see my entire family get emotional. I am the Thanos of emotions. Now, that is it for Petite Maman.